Hi, friends. Welcome to Melanated Perspectives with your hosts, Renita and Tara. Thank you for joining us today.
We hope you come back often and add us to your weekly rotation.
We missed you all. We hope you missed us too. Life happens sometimes, so that's why there's a slight delay in seeing or hearing us. But we're glad to be back. And today we're talking about discipline. How were we disciplined? Because we both grew up in the 80s. How did that translate into our parenting? How do we discipline our sons? Going into a little bit more about discipline. So, Tara, what you got? What's your question for us?
Take it away. We're going to start at the top, Renita.
Okay.
So, what did discipline look like in the Hill House back in the 80s?
Watch out now. So, my mom especially was a yeller. And
we're just going right in. Okay.
We're going right in. It wasn't uncommon that she lost her fuse was pretty short. So get it together, do what you need to do, or we heard that yelling. And then there was physical punishment in my household. I remember they had a paddle at one point. Yeah. And I remember seeing that happen. Sorry, Roland, but to my brother. And I'm throwing him under the bus because I really think he's older. So I think witnessing that was enough for me to go, you know what? I may not like what they're asking me to do. I may not want to do it. But for me, you raising your voice, I don't need you to hit me because you raising your voice or potentially being disappointed was enough. Seeing your parents lose their cool or have that whatever in their eyes. No, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
What about you? What happened?
Well, I was the oldest, so I had a good 9 years before my sister came around, and I have been known to be smart-mouthed.
Hereditary.
Yes.
What?
So I got it more than a couple times. I remember my mom had what me and all my cousins called it. We called it the licking stick.
Okay.
It was.
I've heard those. I don't know if I've seen one of those.
Yeah. So it was like a stick that you stick in like your garden, like a green.
Oh, that green thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Ooh.
Yeah, and you could hear it coming across. It was like whoosh. And it was like, okay, I'm not going to do that again until next time that I do it, because...
So you were back-talking Nana, or... I'm trying to get... Yes. So you had the nerve, and then you got hit with that, and that wasn't enough to be like, maybe I should...
No, I got the licking stick more than once, so it was not enough. Yeah.
That bad boy hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And then what'd you do? You cried and went to your room, or where'd you go?
Oh, I cried. I'm sure I stomped and slammed some doors, which probably...
You slammed the door. Oh, I know Nana wasn't playing that. Nana was not playing with
So
that.
discipline in the manual house was often physical.
I'm curious where you know how, this is what my dad specifically used to say, that not only if his mom got a hold of you, she was talking while she was beating you. So was your mom saying anything to you?
Oh,
like,
so
I know
funny.
you're not going to talk to me like this daughter or child or whatever.
Like, the licking stick was not like a belt where you just keep getting hit. Like, you get that one good time and, like, the tears start to flow.
Did she say something while you're doing? I know you're not going to say that again.
I bet.
Okay, I just was curious if you remember that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if there were words, and I don't recall there still being words. But maybe I blocked some of this out.
I'm sure I did, but you know what? I can imagine her like little face, like it was like almost always shocked. Like maybe it wasn't shocked. Maybe it was like you have some nerve, but it was always like. No, you didn't.
Just say that to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Mommy.
Sorry. That's interesting because as a kid, I would have to say now that you're telling that story that I got a little lippy in high school. I think it was a little more harder to control.
Oh, yeah.
Because, one, be fair, the hormonal and attitude changes as an adolescent. I mean, I think it's real, and I think it's a lot trying to process. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying I remember maybe not. I feel some kind of way, but I don't know why, and there's just a lot going on. And then I got annoyed by my parents.
I wish you guys could see your face.
They were annoying to me. And so sometimes they just be like, just be quiet. But obviously you didn't say that because you still wanted your teeth. Or if you did, it would be the last time you ever said that. But I do remember, like, closing that door. And do you see this on the show? I feel like I've seen this somewhere. You guys can't see me, but you talk to the door as if it's your parent, and you're like, I don't want to listen to you. I don't give a... And then when I got older, I started dropping, not the curse words to them, but close that door and be like, I'm tired of this shit, or I don't want to hear you. Y'all are so fucking annoying. And I do remember them being like, my dad saying something like, you getting a little big for your britches, if the language, if I, not cursing, but if I was getting too smart mouth, and my mom... I don't remember what she would say, but I'm sure it wasn't too far off from that. Yes, so it was quite different in the 80s and 90s. On some level, I guess. Yeah. Some people, it may not be different.
Well, fast forward. I almost said a certain number of years, but let's fast forward to today.
Yes.
What is your discipline strategy or style with your little one?
Well... It is quite different than what I grew up with. I think when I just started to think about those things, you know me, and I don't remember how much on different episodes I've shared, but because I'm such an emotional person, one of the biggest things when I had my son was his emotional well-being. And so figuring out a way that I could discipline him, I'll steal Janet Lansbury, like, discipline without shaming. That's, I think, one of her book titles, actually. And starting to, like, read a little bit more about, like, what can I do that doesn't involve physical punishment, but you also understand this is not acceptable, this is not okay. Now, that sounds nice, right?
Okay.
But, of course... I am human and I've lost my temper, so the yelling thing, which that's not like I didn't love it, but I've lost my patience for sure. And, have yelled or screamed at my child, and also the idea that I'm even saying, like, why are you doing this? But I feel like I'm talking to myself because he's not like he's going to turn around and say, well,
Mommy,
I did this because I can't regulate my emotions right now.
Right.
So... I focus a lot on trying to have a conversation and explain and separate the behavior from the emotions, and wanting my child to understand there's no wrong emotion. Things make us sad in life, things make us anxious, things make us upset. So what can we do when we have those emotions, right? You could throw a toy, but in this household, that's not what we do.
And
you'd
like to keep it.
Right, if you'd like to have toys in that room. But I've definitely taken away toys. I've done the timeout. I'm not sure the success of that, and then I've read some more about it not being maybe the most helpful thing. But, this is like anything else, right? Everybody has what works for them. So I want to be clear, I don't think when I read this thing, I think, oh, this is the way. But for me, there's a lot of things that make connections, and I understand, and I'm like, this makes sense, and I think I want to try it. Right. But, also remembering things take time, right? So just because first time I try it doesn't necessarily work so well. Because the first time I got tired that my child seemed to act like he didn't know the morning routine. Get dressed, go potty, brush teeth. Well, I printed out some nice pictures of him doing it, and it was very nice, and laid it out on that bed. Well, one day, I guess he got a little tired of it, and he ripped up those pictures. And so I was like, okay, this didn't quite work. And that was pretty early.
Okay.
With that new thing. So... Did I answer your question fully?
I think so.
Okay, what about you? What?
Same for me. It started like early on. I had conversations with my husband, and I was like, "We are not gonna be hitters. We're not gonna beat our child into submission. Like that is just not gonna happen in the Wiley house. You know what I mean?"
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been really intentional about kind of like the same things, having conversations about like how you're feeling and understanding like I think we talked about it before where at like a younger age they don't necessarily have the words,
right?
You know, so like helping to give them the words to be able to say like I'm feeling X and that's why this is happening,
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I talked to him about like his feelings and what's happening and expectations a lot, like this is what we do in our house,
Mm-hmm.
like this is how we behave and these other things, like we don't do these things. And but I found myself, I remember 2 times
Mm-hmm.
where like I was just really like frustrated, like how many times do I have to say the same thing,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I popped him.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I felt like crud, you know?
Why are you saying crud? This is a grown folks.
I know, but
okay.
because like I felt like that, and he's looking at me like terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is happening? And I'm like, what is happening? So we are crying together.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And like in my mind, it's like, how do you teach a child to like how to behave in the world and say like we don't hit people,
mm-hmm.
but I'm gonna pop your butt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how you reconcile that.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know that I answered your question, but I don't know that I answered your question.
You did. I do have a question a little deeper, or no, I don't know, clarifying question or whatever. How did you know that what you experienced was not something you were going, like you said, we're not going to be hitters in the Wiley house? I mean, was there like a clear, you know how I was saying, like for me, because I'm so focused on emotional health and wondering like, how would this affect you? Did you have something that you could pinpoint, or no, something just told you I just want to do something different? Or did you have like a specific, do you get what I'm asking?
I do. And I think a part of it was him being a little black boy. I didn't want him to grow up with aggression and then him to walk out of the house and like have like this aggressive kind of personality.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it comes from that, you know, but I just know I didn't want him to grow up in that kind of,
okay,
I don't know, it's almost traumatic, you know.
Yes.
I remember getting,
it is traumatic.
yeah, so I think it was that. It's
okay.
like 1, he's a boy, 2, he's a black boy, and I didn't want him to grow up that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it was intentional, but not, I don't think I thought so much through like the social, like I don't think I thought through that.
Yeah.
I just know I didn't want him to have that experience.
Okay.
So, wait, did you have another question?
No, I was going to share what you shared about the times where you popped and you were like, this does not feel good. Is that where you were going to follow?
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember he was maybe 2. I feel like I can specifically remember him being like on this, no, maybe it was a little older, on the stool, 2.5 closer to 3 maybe, on this little blue stool that we still have in the bathroom. And it was one of those things where, I just kept repeating myself. Then he was laughing, which at the time I took to be like, just like, you think this is funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I had enough that day, and I remember popping his leg. And like you said, for me it was like, oh my God, I don't feel better. I feel out of control.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I felt like shit. I was just like, and I was like, this is confusing. I'm telling my kid not to hit, and then I'm smacking them, or I'm popping him because I didn't smack him. I popped his leg because I'm so frustrated.
Yes.
You know, and realizing as I really took that in, and then I started getting, if you want to call it help, by like reading some other books and like, what can I do? It's like, instead of giving a timeout to myself, which is what I feel like I'm trying to do more now, you know, I did. I was reacting totally of all emotion. Mm-hmm. And I also read, just as a side thing, about the laughing piece is not really because they think it's funny. It's more like uncomfortable because they see like your emotions are kind of like out of control. Mm-hmm. And so they don't quite know how to interpret that. And so it kind of comes out as like, I'm laughing, this is uncomfortable and scary and this is, you know, on one hand they're coming to you for love and you comfort them, right? And then the same person who's loving and comforting you then smacks you. It's like,
Don't you think though? I think you kind of said it, like disciplining your child out of emotion, like that's more for you than getting your child to fix a behavior.
Right.
You know, it's like, I'm mad. Or I'm frustrated with you, pop. And not necessarily like, when you're feeling this way, like there's
these
a way
are choices
to
no, totally. And then I know it's not like it just only happened one time, unfortunately. And it is. I'm sorry. I just was really sitting there thinking again about that, and I was just like, man, this does not make me feel like a good mommy. Or, you know, the whole, like, I don't know if anybody wants to be a screamer, but sometimes a default was just like, ah, and then I'm listening to myself, and I remember one time just feeling like, I know I should stop this, and it was almost like an out-of-body experience, where it was like, you need a timeout, you need to separate yourself, but I was so mad, and almost like, I wanted to get my point across so much to my kid, and I didn't stop myself, and just like, dude, just walk out for a second, and just come back. But to feel like there is some kind of progress, or just to remind people that we all have that, because it doesn't equal a bad parent, right? Yeah. Is that there are times where I've caught myself and I literally just laid on the bed, and either sometimes I cried or I just had a moment, and my son came in like, Mommy, what are you doing? And I said, you know, sometimes mommies need a timeout. And Mommy was getting so mad and frustrated, I just needed to come into my room for a minute. Yeah. So, yeah. Aww. I
know. Okay. Well, so how do you think your little one is doing with your style of discipline? Has it gotten better? I mean, they're both young. Yeah. So
and they go through phases, right? You'll work through something that you think, oh my gosh, this is never. Well, I should say, I thought that there was times where I thought, oh my gosh, is this your personality? Are you gonna like stop doing this eventually? Mm-hmm. You know, people will be like, oh, it's a phase. But when you're in a phase, it feels like forever. Ooh. Or I should say, I felt like forever, and I was like, oh my gosh, can we move on to something else? So I do feel like that's what happens, is you kind of work through something, right? They get a little older, things change, but then something new comes. But I will say, like, learning to use a calmer voice and lowering my voice is actually very helpful. So my child right now, who's 4, just as almost 5, 4.5, and realizing when I was able to have almost like a flat voice and no emotion, then it helped him to calm down, because us both going at it, two fires going at the same time was just like, oh, you want to get loud? Oh, I'll get loud. And it was just like, what is this accomplishing, right? Yeah. Just a cluster, you know what? And when I was like, I said to him recently, I said, who are you yelling at? And he kind of looked, and he was upset about something and was like, Arr! And then I said, who are you yelling at? And then he was like, okay, Mommy. And then he came over, and like I hugged him, and I said, what's going on? You know, and I realized too that my husband is able to see a lot of similarities see similarities between himself and our son. And so I think what's really cool and has been helpful to me is that he's been able to, I think, channel that or get to that quicker, because he recognized, like, somebody hollering and acting that way wasn't helpful to him. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's able to stop. But also, to be fair, I am with my son more than my husband because my husband's job is full time. So I do think there's a piece, and I just want to say this to parents out there because I think it's sometimes easy to beat yourself up. There is a piece of if you are around your child a little bit more, I do think keeping your patience in check requires a little bit more as opposed, and like it's not knocking them, but if you come home and you haven't been there all day, and so the first time to you it's the first time that the kid's done it that day, right? Yeah. But to the other parent it might be like, this is the 20th time and I'm running out of this house.
I'm tired. Yeah.
What about you? How do you think your son responds to your discipline style now? And your son is almost 7.
If you ask him, he would say he's 6.11.
That's true.
Which is very true.
Yes.
I mean, there are times that I look at him and I'm like, dude, really? You know? But, I mean, for the most part, I think he's really good about expressing how he's feeling. And I think there's a part of him, you know how you said your husband and your son have some similarities?
Mm-hmm.
I think I have some similarities with my son.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I can see him, like, almost, I can see him when he's about to get upset.
Mm-hmm.
And I can also see, like, the frustration building up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I am pretty quick to, like, kind of jump in and, like, hey, how are you feeling? What's happening? You know, to try to get him to talk through it. I will say that there's an opportunity for me to, like, back up a little bit and, like, let him kind of figure some things out for himself because he is 6.11.
Yes.
You know, so that's something that I am, like, working towards is not being a fixer.
Okay.
Like, just coming in and, like, fixing it and just giving him an opportunity to do it. But I mean, he's a good kid. He listens occasionally. That's the part that is me. It is like he listens when he wants to. He can hear things from 3 rooms away when no one's talking to him. But I could be in the same room with him.
That's called selective hearing.
And he won't hear me at
all. Selective listening.
Yeah. But I think it's going good, you know. I don't know. Did you get it? Yes.
I would be curious. Could you give an example? I just thought it was interesting you brought up an area where, because I'd like to then think about that, respond for myself too, because I think that's a good point as a parent. It's kind of checking yourself and where maybe we can back up or be more accommodating. Can you give an example maybe of a situation, you know, where you feel like you came in to, like, fix it?
I think it's always, maybe not always, but I think a lot of times it is around, like, the listening. So I know that is a hot button for his dad.
Okay.
You know, like, if I tell you something, like, I need you to do it right away.
Okay.
And for me, like, my sort of style has been, if you're in the middle of something, say it, you know? So, like, okay, so specifically, he'll be playing a game, and then, like, he'll be told to get ready for, like, his bath, or to put his plate away, or something like that. And then he's in the middle of something. And my husband's like, do it now. And I'm like, son, tell your dad, like, what's happening. For me, it's about the communication piece. If you just tell me, I'm, like, seconds away from finishing this thing, I might let you finish it. But if you're ignoring me or you're ignoring him,
that's an interesting point.
It's about to go down.
So for you, that's a really good, I appreciate you sharing that because I think that's a transition thing and a lot of stuff it sounds like I'm whatever, like reading all these books. But, transitions are challenging for a lot of kids. That's a normal thing, right? Not that you were saying it wasn't. So I think I hear you saying that like if you can't communicate, like, okay, I can go and take my bath. I just want to know, could I really just finish this or have like 5 more minutes?
Yep.
You're cool with that. And I don't know, I mean, I'm assuming you two, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but we grew up in the era of your parents said it, you did it right then, right? There was no conversation.
Yes.
And I think because you and I do really want the conversation and the communication with our son, sons, we may not get upset or as bothered that somebody else does, right? Because I think that is such a key thing that we have in common, because we've talked about it a lot, about communication. And since my son is a little younger, I will say that I noticed that with the transition. So I use a lot of timers, and he'll do it now. He'll go up to Alexa and say, "Can I have Alexa set a 15-minute timer?"
Nice.
And I will ask him, like for instance, last night, I told him, it's bath night, and I just give that kind of as a reminder. And then he was like, okay, or sometimes he'll be like, I don't want to do it. And I said, I understand you may not want to. This is still bath night,
Right.
So I give him the control of, I say, well, how many minutes would you like? And usually his funny thing now is everything is I shouldn't say everything, but it's typically a 15-minute thing. So I don't know if he quite understands, because when he's watching something, I'm thinking, okay. Because he does, every once in a while he'll bust out, like, he'll do a 60-80, makes up his own number, and do some really long thing. But in general, it's like 15 minutes. And I've noticed that not all the time, because nothing's 100% right. But in general, it's like, okay, I have this time to transition. And sometimes he'll say, can I have a few more minutes? And I'll say, you can do 5 more minutes, but after that, it's the bath. You hear the water, you're in there. I can help you get in there, or you can go yourself.
In the hierarchy. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I would like to say something. You all wouldn't necessarily know this, except, no, some of our friends listening know Tara well. I want to say that Tara is very good at, I had a word, and now I lost that word. You're very and this makes sense, because if you can relate to your son and some of his behavior, you're really in tune with him. So you do a very good job of, like you've told me this, noticing when something maybe is upsetting him that somebody else wouldn't see. And Tara is really patient. She's got on here and said she isn't.
I think most people would say that I'm not.
But from what I've seen, because I do see Tara a couple days a week, and I see her with her son, she's able, maybe, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't use the word patient, maybe the word that maybe a better word is you're not so reactive. I'm a reactive parent sometimes, and it's too emotional, and I feel like you don't get to the place of the reactionary, like I feel like mine gets there pretty quick. And I've noticed that. So I'm just sharing that as this is not me trying, Tara and I talk to each other very blunt and honest.
Yeah, we do.
So, I don't blow smoke up people, nobody's rump, okay?
No. Well, thank you. That's very, very kind. But you said something now that's not on my list of questions.
Okay.
But I have a question. You said that you feel like you're really reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that is?
One, I mean, maybe somebody else who isn't, but I believe it's gotta be connected, or I shouldn't say gotta be, but one of the reasons maybe is just because I'm such an emotional person, and I just do feel like it's harder for me to take the emotion away from things in a situation and really just go, okay, this is happening, and this, as opposed to, this sounds silly. I know my child isn't trying to tick me off.
Right.
I know that in my brain, right? But I still feel like in some way on my body, like, you just trying to test me. I don't know if I can't this
but
is not that great.
But you also know that they are trying to test you, right? Like,
well,
that's
okay.
part of it.
Okay, yeah, you're right. They are trying to okay. What did I say? Okay.
I don't know. We should have planned for this.
No, this is good, because you're right. It's not, they are trying to test you. What he's not doing this to see his mommy lose it, or to get, that's what I think I really wanted to say. Right? He's not doing this, I just want to get under my mommy's skin.
Yeah.
Kids, my dad has told me this my whole life. Kids, that's what kids do. They test your boundaries. They test to see what you're going to do.
Yeah.
That was great when I was 16 hearing that. But when you have your own kid and you like...
Get in the bathtub.
And I'm like... okay, Dad, that's great, because he'll say that to me now when my kid is clowning, and I'm like, I don't want to hear that right now. I know this child is testing me, but I'm not in the mood for the test. Did anybody prep me for the test? No. So it's like, separating that, and I feel like you do well with, like, because my thing is like, oh, no, you did it, blah, 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 and you're like, you don't react that way. So this is not being articulated as well as I'd like.
No, that's fair.
Okay. So I am working on trying to, and I mean, this is not uncommon for me in the rest of my life, because I think I just have strong reactions to a lot of things, and sometimes that can be helpful, and sometimes it's like, you should not be triggered this many times.
Girl, hush. Anyway.
Keeping it real, because there's somebody out there who's like, I get that, I feel that, and there's somebody out there who's like you, that's why it's helpful to talk to somebody else, because you get support from people, but they also can give you, like, have you tried this, or look at it this way. Yeah. I think,
Yeah, I hear that. Okay.
So,
do you have,
what's your takeaway?
That's where I was going. That's my question.
Oh, sister.
Yeah, what do you want to say to the people about all the things?
All the things, man. One, you need to do what you need to do in your own home. Mm-hmm. Don't let anybody else's style or comments,
I like that. Like, there's no normal.
Yeah.
Whatever works for your family is what works.
You gotta do.
But don't be out there beating on your children.
Right. I'm not an advocate of that. But,
right. Yeah.
And also, we say this a lot, but I really believe it. Like, use your support system. Friends, whoever they are. And seriously, my friend, I don't know if she'll hear this, but I have two friends named Sarah. But shout out to both of them, because they've helped me with different ideas. They'll say, have you tried this? Or this is what they're doing with their kids. And we'll talk a little bit more. One of the Sarahs recommended Janet Lansbury to me. And that got to the big, like, disciplining without shaming your child. And she told me not only about the books, but the podcast. And what's really helpful with that, just to put that out there to people, is you can type in a specific issue that you're having to see if there's one. So you don't have to sit through like an hour long. And a lot of them aren't long. There are people writing in with their question. This is my issue. And she gives you,
oh, nice.
An example, and then gives you her ideas for the solution. And I just found it very helpful. So I just, what's your takeaway?
That is mine. That there's no normal. Like, you do what's right for your family and your child. Nobody knows your child the way that you do, right? Mm-hmm. So what works in the Wiley house might not work in the Hill house. The Hill Taylor house.
Taylor.
Yeah, it might not work there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no normal, and that's okay.
And also, when you're having a rough moment, doesn't make you a bad mom or dad.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a rough moment. It's a challenging, whatever. There's always another day. That sounds hokey, but for real. Or how quickly your kid will go on and be like, they're playing and they're okay. And there's nothing, I have too many takeaways. There's no shame, and I really think it's a really good thing to apologize to your child.
I don't either. You're right.
If you've lost because this has happened, the times that I told you I lost it, I did apologize to my son and explain what was going on. I didn't explain that it was okay, but explaining, I explained my behavior, and I apologized because I also want to model that for my child. No one's too good to above whatever to apologize, right?
Yeah.
We tell kids to apologize, but I think we also have to show them that we can apologize to them, right?
Grown-ups aren't perfect. I say that a lot in this house.
You do, child. You do.
All right,
y'all. Until next time.